Chapter 2, Variable Adjustment. The open-plan office was a mistake of evolutionary proportions. Arthur had concluded this years ago, but today the hypothesis was being proven with violent efficiency. It was 10:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. The data entry center, located in a converted warehouse that retained the draftiness but none of the charm, was vibrating. To anyone else, it was just office noise. To Arthur, it was a cacophony of unregulated frequencies. To his left, a radiator hissed in a rhythmic, atonal shriek. To his right, a woman named Cheryl was eating yogurt. The sound of the plastic spoon scraping the bottom of the cup was wet and sharp, like a dental pick hitting a nerve. Scrape, hiss, scrape, hiss. Arthur stared at his dual monitors. The numbers on the spreadsheet were blurring. Not because his eyes were failing, but because his brain was allocating 90% of its RAM to suppressing the urge to scream. To Arthur, it was a cacophony of unregulated frequencies. Miller slapped the back of Arthur's chair. The pain in his leg, which had been a dull throb at breakfast, was now a jagged electrical arc stress. Arthur knew increased cortisol. Cortisol increased inflammation. Inflammation increased nociception. It was a feedback loop. Vane! The voice came from behind. Arthur didn't jump, but his heart rate spiked from 72 to 110 in a single beat. He swiveled his chair. Standing there was Miller, the floor manager. Miller was 26, wore a fleece vest indoors, and possessed the loud, unearned confidence of someone who had never actually written a line of code. "We have a problem with the Q3 merge," Miller said, leaning too close. He smelled of stale coffee and mints. "The client says the data fields are misaligned. I need you to manually recheck the last 4,000 entries by noon." Arthur blinked. "That is statistically impossible. The average entry time is 6 seconds. 4,000 entries would take 6.6 hours. Miller frowned. He didn't like math. He liked can-do attitudes. "Just get it done, Arthur. Or we have to have another conversation about your output metrics." Miller slapped the back of Arthur's chair, a friendly, patronizing gesture that sent a shock-wave of agony down Arthur's sciatic nerve. Arthur winced, his vision whitening for a second. "Right? Noon," Miller said, walking away. Arthur turned back to the screen. His hands were shaking. He tried to type, but his fingers hit 2 keys at once. The error sound, ding, rang out. Scrape, hiss, ding, scrape, hiss. The noise in the room grew louder. The lights seemed to strobe. He felt the familiar constriction in his throat, the prelude to a panic attack or a sensory meltdown. If he lost it here, if he yelled at Cheryl or hyperventilated, he was fired. Again. He had $42 in his checking account. He reached into his messenger bag. His fingers brushed the orange plastic cylinder. "Take it bedtime," the label whispered. Arthur looked at the clock. 10:22 a.m. His logical mind engaged, dissecting the variables. The doctor had said the side effect was drowsiness. But Arthur wasn't drowsy. He was hyper-aroused. His nervous system was redlining. If the drug was a depressant and he was currently manic with stress and pain, the two should theoretically cancel each other out to a neutral zero. He tipped his head back and swallowed the pill dry. It wasn't drug abuse, he told himself. It was calibration. He stood up, grabbed the bottle, and walked to the employee restroom. It was empty. He went into the stall and locked it. He shook 1 yellow capsule into his palm. 300 milligrams. He hesitated. The pain in his leg pulsed, a hot, rhythmic reminders of his biological failure. He tipped his head back and swallowed the pill dry. 11:15 a.m. Arthur was typing. He wasn't just typing, he was flowing. The radiator was still hissing, but it sounded distant, like a recording played in another room. Cheryl was still scraping her yogurt cup, but Arthur didn't feel the urge to stab her with his pen. He just registered the sound as data, acoustic input, negligible priority, and discarded it. The pain in his leg had retreated to a dull, buzzing warmth. It actually felt pleasant, like a limb that had fallen asleep and was just waking up. But the most remarkable change was the screen. Usually, the spreadsheet was a wall of intimidating labor. Now, the numbers seemed to dance. He saw the patterns instantly. He spotted the misalignment Miller had screamed about within 4 minutes. He was fixing rows at a speed that would have been impossible an hour ago. I am optimized, Arthur thought. He needed to ask Miller a clarifying question. Usually, this would involve 20 minutes of mental rehearsal. Arthur stood up. The floor felt soft, spongy. He took a step and his right foot didn't quite lift high enough. The toe of his shoe caught the carpet. He pitched forward, his shoulder slamming into the fabric wall of his cubicle. Thump. Cheryl stopped eating. She looked over the partition. Arthur? You okay? He wasn't just typing, he was flowing. The pain in his leg had retreated to a dull, buzzing warmth. Arthur straightened up. He felt a wave of dizziness, but it wasn't nauseating. It was funny. He felt a sudden, bizarre urge to laugh. I am functioning within normal parameters, Cheryl, he said. He froze. His voice sounded thick. The words had come out like they were covered in syrup. Functioning. Cheryl stared at him. You look a little pale. Low blood sugar. Arthur lied smoothly. The lie came easy. Usually, he couldn't lie to save his life. His face always gave it away. But now his face felt relaxed, detached. He offered her a smile that felt loose and charming. Just going to grab a coffee, he said. He walked toward Miller's office. He concentrated hard on his feet. Left, right. He felt like he was piloting a mech suit that was slightly too large for him. He had to widen his stance to keep his balance. He reached Miller's door. He didn't knock. He just leaned into the doorframe. Miller, Arthur said. The manager looked up, annoyed. What? The data isn't misaligned. The client is using a delimiter that our system interprets as a line break. I wrote a script to strip the characters. It's done. Miller stared at him. It's done? It's been an hour. Efficiency, Arthur said. He felt a surge of power. He wasn't the weird, twitchy guy in the corner anymore. He was the smartest man in the room, and for the first time he wasn't afraid to show it. Okay, Miller said slowly, looking at Arthur's eyes. Good job, Vane. You all right? You're swaying a little bit. Arthur realized he was indeed swaying. He planted his feet. New insoles, Arthur said. Correcting my posture. Right? Miller said, looking back at his screen. Whatever. Good work. Arthur walked back to his desk. He sat down and exhaled. He checked his watch. 11:30 a.m. The pill had turned a catastrophe into a victory. He had solved the problem. He had handled the social interaction. He had neutralized the pain. He looked at the bottle in his bag. The label still said bedtime. Incorrect, Arthur thought, opening the spreadsheet again. Variable requires update. He realized then that he had 10 hours of awake time left in the day. He did the math. The half-life of gabapentin was roughly 5 to 7 hours. If he wanted to maintain this state, this beautiful, quiet, capable state, He would need to redos at approximately 4 p.m. He opened his personal budget spreadsheet. He calculated the cost of the copay versus the number of pills. If he doubled his intake, he would run out in 15 days. I'll need to find a way to get more, he thought. It wasn't a panicked thought. It was just a project. And Arthur Vane was very good at projects.